Tennessee's biggest concern on offense. You've got some selections here, a reshuffled offensive line, new wide receiver core, loss of Dylan Sampson, Nico taking the next step. We'll talk about which concerns the Vols will fix. Now, the offensive line, after doing some research and making some phone calls, I have some insight into that I'll share with you. 4 downs. I'm sorry, hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. All right, Caleb, let's start with the reshuffled offensive line. Now they're just now getting into pads, so nobody, including the coaches, really knows. But I am hot on the reshuffled offensive line, as hot as you can be. Of course, you'd be better off if you had Cooper Mays and that crew back and Andre Keurig had won his appeal. But with Wendell Moe and Pendleton, I think they've got something there. I don't think they're incredibly deep. I've mentioned before, I like Larry Johnson. You're going to throw David Sanders out there. I don't believe that freshmen have an impact on the offensive line in the SEC until I see it. So I'm not going to go down that road, but it wouldn't surprise me if he started at right tackle. But he's got to climb the ladder a little bit. Caleb, I'm not really concerned about Tennessee's reshuffled offensive line.
I'm actually not concerned about it either. Largely because this year, most of the players that we're talking about on the quote unquote reshuffled offensive line, it's not like their transfer is being plugged into the system learning it. Now, yes, there is Sam Pendleton, there's Wendell Moe and David Sanders, but like, let's talk about replacing Cooper Mays. It's not like it's not like they went the transfer portal route. No, they just have a guy that has been in the system for a year and have him ready to start, which is what we've been waiting for Josh Heupel to do.
I've said before, now I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Cooper Mays, but William Satterwhite absolutely has complete mental grasp of this offense. So in that regard, and Cooper told me Satterwhite reminds Cooper of Cooper. So I think he is going to be very good. I think he knows what to do. Physically, I just don't think he was ready last year. And there's no shame in that because, listen,
most linemen aren't.
No, I mean, absolutely not. Hot or cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, the new wide receiver core. This to me is a bigger concern than the offensive line. I'm cold on these guys, and I think it's because I don't believe in Boo like you do.
Oh, I'm hot on them. I think, one, because we're asking if they're just going to be better than last year. I don't think it's that hard to be better than last year for some certain reasons, but I believe everything that's being said about Mike Matthews. We just talked yesterday about how the receivers are balling out in spring ball, and apparently we've been hearing Mike Matthews is unguardable right now. And they've been saying the defense can't find somebody to get on him and stick with him.
Are you hot or cold on Dylan Sampson's replacement, which we believe will be Peyton Lewis?
Or just the being able to replace Dylan Sampson. All right, I'm cold on that, but it's not as big of a deal. I do like Peyton Lewis. I actually think Peyton Lewis may have more NFL potential than Dylan Sampson, but in this offense, Dylan Sampson was just able to do some things that were just impressive and incredible. I'm cold on being able to replace that production, even though I think Tennessee will have good production at running back.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they may hunker down this year. And I know people don't want to hear this, but it feels like with Peyton Lewis being a power back, they might hunker down a little bit in that 2 tight end look consistently. Now, I know people don't want to hear that because you want trips and you want them throwing the ball all over the field. But just a feeling with Peyton Lewis, it might speak to his ability. What do you think of Deshaun Bishop? Does he take another step, or have we seen the ceiling of Deshaun Bishop?
Oh, well, it's funny, when you were out last week with your sinus infection, we had a story, I wanted to bring it up. Brew McCoy was asked about a player on Tennessee's offense, like now that he's left, that he's watching, and he said, watch out for Deshaun Bishop. He's a beast. If Bruce says it, he's not a liar. And that stood out to me a lot. So maybe I have to recalibrate my expectations for Deshaun. I don't think Peyton Lewis or Deshaun Bishop are the home run threat Dylan Sampson was. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
I think Peyton Lewis, because he's a power back, like you said, he'll wear teams down more, getting 3 to 4 yards, 5 yards a carry. But that means the home runs will return to like what they were in 2022, meaning the passing game. I think a lot of the reason Nico didn't hit a lot of home runs last year, Dave, was because Dylan Sampson hit those home runs.
Well, that's fair. And listen, Nico wasn't protected for a good portion of last year because of tackle issues. Timothy says, I want a 2 tight end look, help the tackles. Yeah, I think that's what you're going to see. And I think they will be able to help the tackles. They're also going to be very good. I mean, Miles Kitselman is a top flight tight end. I mean, so if he's in the game, whoever else is in the game can block people. Theoretically, Ethan Davis would be a guy that could get downfield as well. This needs to be a big year for Ethan Davis. Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. 50 years in Tennessee. Integrity matters.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Nico taking the next step. Hot or cold?
I'm hot on it. I'm hot on it, but not as hot as you know what? I'm cold. I'm hot. He will take
How can you? You're breaking the thermostat here. Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
I'm cold because while I think he'll take the next step, I don't think he'll take the next step that a lot of people want him to take. I don't think it'll be at the level it should be, but it won't matter because I think the receiving core taking a huge step forward will help Nico out a lot.
Let me make this statement and see if you agree with it. And I've thought a lot about it. I think Nico will be Casey Clausen or Eric Ainge, but not Peyton Manning.
That's hot.
I don't think he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in school history, but I think he will be up in that top tier of very, very good quarterbacks. When you talk about the greatest quarterbacks in Tennessee history, it's what Condridge, it's Peyton Manning. That's pretty much your two, right?
Hendon Hooker.
The modern era.
What Hendon Hooker did was pretty
okay.
The three best individual seasons ever by a quarterback in Tennessee, the three best: Hendon Hooker 2022, Peyton Manning 1997, and funny enough, Josh Dobbs 2016 are the three best individual seasons by quarterback.
Hooker, I love his name, but Hooker to me, it was more about Tennessee surprised people with their offense, and he took advantage of that, which he should have. I don't necessarily think that he is the same ilk as a Condridge Holloway or a Peyton Manning.
Well, Condridge, see, the hard part with Condridge Holloway was actually kind of very Josh Dobbs-like, and what I mean by that is Condridge Holloway was leading Tennessee at a time when Tennessee as a program was really suffering, and he basically masked all of the really big flaws within the program at the time. And then when he left, those flaws just magnified. Whereas kind of Peyton Manning was part of a wave of Tennessee on the ascension as a program. Condridge was part of a wave of them on the descent, but it wasn't his fault. He was masking the descent heavily. And I think that, but yeah, if he's Casey Clausen or Eric Ainge, Dave, I'm sorry, that is a disappointment. That's not what he was paid to be.
How am I feeling on Merklinger or McIntyre? That, according to Steven, well, all the reports on Merklinger that he understands the offense much more, which you would expect as opposed to last year. It's still a major red flag to me for somebody that talented not to beat out Gaston Moore. No offense to Gaston, but I mean, he was a high 4-star guy. To not be able to beat him out, I think, is disconcerting. I haven't heard much on McIntyre yet. He's running third team. He's not getting any first team snaps. So that remains to be seen. It will be interesting, though. This is one of the cool parts about the transfer portal and NIL, to see how they manage the roster and keep. I mean, they want to go into, let's say Nico goes pro. Then they want to keep McIntyre and Merklinger, right? Let's say Nico doesn't go pro. Then they want to keep Nico and one of the two. But if Nico comes back for another year, they could lose them both. That soap opera part is kind of interesting.
That's kind of crazy how that could play out. You're right. So
we don't know what quarterbacks we'll be talking about this time in spring next year.
I think Josh Heupel is going to make a move pretty quickly so he doesn't have that happen, to say, make clear one of these guys is the second stringer and let the other guy know he probably needs to hit the portal. He's going to Brian Maurer that guy.
I love Hendon Hooker. Steven says, don't you slander Hendon Hooker, Dave. I'll never watch the show. I love Hendon Hooker. Listen, if I think Condridge and Peyton are 10s, he's a 9. I mean, I love him that much. So, I mean, now, Unsung brings up a great point. Was it Merck didn't beat out Gaston, or was it Hype's loyalty to upperclassmen? There's something to be said for that.